Hi, and I'm walking towards you. Before I begin my short discussion, I would like to show you hairband I've made. This has a black hairband at the center, and it's a crocheted hairband. This is for my youngest cousin on my mother's side of the family. She is yet to conceive, and she's been married quite a number of years. Um, um, and I thought this would be a good luck factor. You know, red and blood and fertility days. Yesterday I gave you the secret. And if you don't have a regular period, regularize it with hormonal supplements. All right, this is all tip. These are all tips roundabout way. It's also on my Facebook web page, but my gynecologist aunt had said that you can stop your period in case you're on your honeymoon, etc. And I thought this might be the way to go if you want to regularize your period. I have a friend who has irregular periods. Periods, as they say in Bangalore, but here it's the period, irregular period. And yeah, once in like 6 months, you've almost forgotten that it's new and it would show up and that sort of thing. So it's cause for celebration there. Both husband and wife really, living it up. Pub restaurants and that sort of thing. What's the occasion you're celebrating? Oh, my wife has a period. Well, I'm kidding. All right, I really don't know what happened behind closed doors. And so that is what I wanted to share. And if you think about it, the man is the crucial element who begins the act of conception. We all know this. All right. So now the probability of conception in if you have a regular period, fertility days, you are reasonably young, is quite high, quite high. And if you're following the fertility days, is quite high in cases where I nailed it the first time I said last evening, but you could nail it the second time, and but which would be, in most cases they don't have a 7-day period, so which would be within the 5 days, within the 8 days, you have a 2-day period. So it could happen the first time again, first time you're trying. So that sort of thing. And um, for a man to actually get into the act of conception, uh, kinetic and energy equation, of course, E equals mc square, and there's potential in him, mgh, height, getting it there, increase in height, having the surface integral calculation on the surface area of the aroused male organ or penis. And so every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And as I found out, dear gentlemen out there, on a good day, but it's not a bad thing. Lesser is also always good, lesser is always better too. So there you go. And two medical questions out there. I bought really sexy panties, brand panties, lingerie. And the panties are very sexy for me. As I keep saying, I've had a cesarean section. I do not know what transpires in childbirth. I experienced lower back pain and was in labor, but I said it was also a Halloween, and my water had all broken out. All the amniotic fluid had come out, and the baby was out there without no shoe, without the amniotic fluid, but making it all nice and easy. So I think it had to be but childbirth would have been a strain on him. The doctor decided. The intern did not know and wheeled me in for a cesarean section immediately. Once Halloween was done, and but I was, in labor pain, and I never dilated. I never realized why I didn't dilate. I felt like a lesser of a woman because I didn't dilate and had to resort to a cesarean section. But I have found out that there might be a certain changes, lasting changes with childbirth. The cervix expands, the baby comes out. And I don't think, once there is expansion, there is complete contraction again. Because a little bit, maybe, around there might be a tiny bit of expansion, which shows perhaps in, in a woman's love triangle in the front. And so I bought 50% off second set of panties in Lovey and Rose, sexy red bra and panty, and a front clip bra and a panty, and I just picked up 50% off. She said, you pick up the other kind of panties, and I picked them, and then they're meshed and everything, really sexy. And it struck me, why do they have this? I chose the regular panty, sexy and a little lacy and that sort of thing. And it struck me that there could be lasting changes. And I have to look at biology books to confirm, but it's an exercise out there for you, first year med school, got to figure it out all by yourself. So that might be a nice, or even second year, third year, what happens, how does it happen, and that sort of thing. And for the cesarean section, why can't a childbirth happen if your water breaks? In some case, but I think completely water broke for me. But maybe I'd done too much, or it was just the way that I went into labor, and maybe that's all there was to it. And but so what actually happens? Why couldn't they do that? Why couldn't they get the baby out through the birth canal? So that's another question out for you. Have fun. All right, doing it. And I am looking at an audio copy of Siddharth Mukherjee's The Laws of Medicine. How apt, right? Laws of Medicine, as read by Santino Fontana. It's a book read by Santino Fontana, and I'll let you enjoy it. And he says there's a 1978 book out there which has 13 laws of medicine. These are not like the laws of physics, laws of biology, or the laws of thermodynamics, laws of a chemical process, mass transfer, heat transfer, momentum, heat and mass transfer. They are different laws. So I will read. There are 3 laws on Google, and I chose this one. Law 2, and these are the principles, Siddharth Mukherjee's own laws. Normals teach us rules, outliers teach us laws. And I will share experimental result of an outlier. I used to work with enzyme catalysis, right? So immobilized enzyme, and I had deleted the outlier in this case because it was not consistent. And so if I could draw a picture, or it's easy to picture. So I was having steady rise, and enzyme catalysis is a linear curve. It goes up and then plateaus to a certain level. It stays there just a little. So that's with soluble enzyme, and that's where the Michaelis-Menten kinetics equations and everything arise from. And the outlier. So this I had this nice curve, not a lot of conversion. All right, not what you would expect, 90%, 99%. But as I found out in my own experiments in the past quite a few years, some of my papers or research papers are on my LinkedIn webpage, my Facebook webpage. But there's a lot out there, which is with the chair of the Department of Chemical Engineering and Applied Chemistry, Professor Allen. And his associate chair, Professor Shoyked, Molly Shoyked, very celebrated, as I said, got a string of awards, is not giving the final word. So in a different way, she's laid down the university has laid down the law. The associate professor has to sign to. Anyways, so I have found out that chemical reaction with the action of enzymatic enzymes as catalyst happens in the first 5-6 minutes. We were collecting points, 15 minutes, first point, 15 minutes, t equals 0, and then t equals 15 minutes. So by then, most of the reaction or immobilized enzyme slows down the rate of reaction. So that's an interesting exercise anyway. Rate of soluble enzyme, rate of immobilized enzyme, and then see how it affects Michaelis-Menten kinetics. So that's an exercise to pursue. So, and I had an outlier. It was all nice. And I deleted the outlier and presented the data on my MSc thesis. Now it occurs to me, after reading Siddharth Mukherjee's law itself, outliers teaches laws, in medicine maybe, but here, I think the whole thing, the enzyme, active site of the enzyme and the substrate going into the active site of the enzyme and reaction taking place there, and so and if two substrates, if another there's a second reactant to the substrate, then the two of them reacting there at the active site must have happened, and this was the outlier, something like 98% conversion, 95% conversion, and it's always not happening at the active site. All right, enzyme, because of, in my own case, tyrosinase, the enzyme was too big. So my supervisor, that Brad Sewell, he's a shadow of the former man he was, So you mustn't expect too much out of him when you see him. He went through a bad incident and was hospitalized, as I gathered, and it has done funny things to his brain. He kind of is not quite the male individual he was. So, anyways, he had said that the enzyme wraps around the substrate because the substrate was the enzyme dimensions was bigger than the substrate. So, if the substrate has to, or substrate was bigger, the zeolite will the support. So I work with immobilized enzyme. Enzyme is the activity of the enzyme is captured on the molecules of the support. And there's an entire procedure which happens. And, my last contribution to immobilized enzyme technology, I have to give due acknowledgement to Brad Sewell's role in this. And the man who showed him the way, Professor Klebanov, his supervisor, etc. And I might have lasting contribution because I had made immobilized enzyme then, and shelf life, if it has lasted all these years, then it's the way to go. I mean, you could still use enzyme, but soluble enzyme is a lot cheaper now than it was then. So that is why people spend so much money on doing research with immobilized enzyme technology. And another thing is that you don't need to wash the equipment all the time. I'm looking at Iogen Corporation. They work with bioethanol. They make bioethanol, right? I mean, with the clean air technology required, no exhaust emissions, NOx, carbon monoxide must not get into the air. So bioethanol, this is old. I mean, Kyoto Protocol and came with it. And then I already said Brian Foody, the CEO, and his father, Patrick Foody, they're pioneers because they came up with bioethanol in Canada, here in Ottawa. Kyoto Protocol of 1997 insisted on clean air. All right, no exhaust emissions, and then people didn't catch on, and this company began making bioethanol. So I worked for it, and to me, the cleaning of equipment is hard. You're making glucose, sugar, right? A soluble enzyme, and you have waste of the substrate left. Even if you pump out the glucose and then take it, there's a part two of it, of course. If you want to make ethanol, glucose acts with you can work out the equation and figure it out, and you will see ethanol comes out, and then what else comes out. So uh, cleanup is hard. So I thought immobilized enzyme is used, then the activity is retained, right? Second time, you have about 60% of the activity maybe. And then the third time, 30%. So you add only so much of substrate. Voila, you know, cleanup is as easy as can be. So I thought in view of that, so I don't know how things happen in this direction, because I chose Mr. Foodie and Professor Allen to talk this out, and I have no idea what happened. But coming back to the outlier, that proved that the basis of the active site of the enzyme and latching on, the substrate latching on, lock-in mechanism, and then all that shown in Watson's molecular biology of the gene. Maybe I fish it out. Wait a second. Show you the picture. Um, it's active site. I wonder what we would do without indexes. It must be hard to make an index. Active site, no, not there. Enzymes, adding enzyme. Mm, Lock in. I had all these page numbers marked, but then, but through my worst years, I have shared with you, I was listless and depressed. It would be a story, but I don't want to relive the times. Uh, sort of engineering kept me going. And of course, my son, enzyme. Oh, this has been replaced. This was such a nice one. Oh, maybe this has been replaced. A smaller picture. Maybe I have a photocopy, but my computers are dead. Those old computers are dead. This is the best. This is no, which was a very nice picture. And I thought that from the experiments I've made, this is not a good one. If you can fish out, buy the book, look for the enzyme substrate complex, lock-in mechanism, etc., is shown really well in the same book. Maybe this is a new. I find that if they're sold out or something, I find my books upgrading on their own. I don't know. Going to an edition I don't want, because but there's a very nice picture, complete page length, and you can hunt for it. So which shows, and I thought, surprise, surprise, the tyrosine in the enzyme tyrosinase is the active site of the enzyme, which is which was a zeolite, and zeolite has calcium. It's either calcium aluminosilicate or sodium aluminosilicate, and enzymes attached to it, is immobilized on it, and somehow I had proven this. So that's interesting, isn't it? Tyrosine for L-DOPA production is the substrate of choice, and it's the active site of the enzyme. Uh, More tyrosine, I have no idea. Kidding. But must not do this actually in a technical talk. Must not get, because it gives. So tyrosine, I had tyrosine and maybe a couple more amino acids. By just looking at my thesis and that sort of thing. So you can do this. But what would it be for glucose oxidase? Is a good question. And glucose oxidase, what would be the active site? This would be a defense a presentation question. Glucose oxidase. You would have to study it and see what would be the active site. So going back to tyrosine, if that's the active site, then you could somehow highlight tyrosine and push it towards the substrate. But reaction is happening with soluble enzyme in the first 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It's all done. Product inhibition is setting in, or substrate inhibition. But substrate is being used up. So product is, it's more in most cases with enzymes, it's um, reversible reaction. Oh, okay. So something to think about. I can't just give questions in medicine. I have to give questions in chemical engineering. There you go. So enjoy. Thank you. Signing off. Gayatri Bisita now.